Okay, today we're going to look at how do we outsmart a narcissist. I'm really going to go into detail about this. And one thing we mustn't do when we're trying to outsmart a narcissist is don't tell them that you know that they're a narcissist. Um, they will not, they'll just up their game. It's important that we understand that overall, a narcissist is about control. You don't need to explain anything to them. Don't defend yourself. Don't make excuses and don't try and convince them. This is the main way that you can learn to outsmart the narcissist. If you can keep all your words concise, really only say the minimum that you need to say to a narcissist. That is how you keep your power, because anything you say to a narcissist is always used against you. Every single thing. They don't have empathy. They don't have they are seeing you in a totally different way than the way that you're being with them. You see, narcissists always, or any con artists also, they know that the way memories work is that memories can be changed. They can tell you some truths, and most con artists tell you some truths, but they tell you a lot of lies. And you cannot, no matter how much you try, convince them or make them understand what it is that you're seeing. There's absolutely no reason why you should be trying to explain to them what it is that you're seeing, or trying to get them to understand or defend yourself or explain yourself or make excuses or trying to convince somebody else that this narcissist is a narcissist. Because the truth is, they will have enablers, and no matter what you do, they will always be the victim. It's just not the way their brain works, because they have no empathy. They will not be able to step into your shoes and understand from your perspective. If you don't have a high level of empathy, you're not able to step into someone else's shoe. You only see it from your perspective. And as far as they're concerned, no matter what happens, they're going to feel like a victim if they see that they have even done something wrong. So they will turn it around, but they will never take responsibility for what you're trying to get them to take responsibility for. So if you're struggling with any of those techniques, maybe you've tried them before, or maybe you're doing them and you're still struggling, I really want to go into a bit more depth into this so that you can look at how, let's break it down and look at the science behind it so that you can really come to terms with, I don't want to explain myself anymore. I don't want to convince them that what they're doing is wrong. I don't want to feel that trigger. I don't want to feel emotional. I don't want to feel like this anymore. And that is truly the only way to outsmart the narcissist, is to actually really heal and get control back of your emotions. Let me explain why. You want to get to a point where you're so healed that you no longer are triggered by what the narcissist says. There's no way around that. They know how to trigger you. They are an expert because they have no empathy or little empathy. They know how to push your buttons. But you see, you might know the narcissist, you might understand how narcissists work, you might have done a lot of research, you might have listened to and read so many different types of books, but your body needs to catch up with what you know consciously. So you might know everything about the narcissist, but your nervous system needs to catch up to what you know about the narcissist. And your emotions need to catch up to what you feel and know about the narcissist, right? So you have to heal the body as well. A lot of this is to do with the body. A lot of the way we have been wired up in the world is to do with how our body reacts, how nature reacts, how we need to have, how trauma happens And we need to allow and heal our bodies so that we can catch up to our logical thinking mind. Yeah, so that we can catch up to that. So let me break that down a bit more for you. What people sometimes don't realize is what's happening when we don't get our needs met. We Lots of things are changing within our brain, our body, our emotions, our thinking patterns, and also our spirit. And I'm going to show you a little bit about what that means. And if you're interested in actually looking at that, if you want a holistic program that really helps you move forward in your therapy, then do look into the resources section. I have an amazing program. I'm getting so much positive feedback. Thank you so much for all the people that have messaged me, direct messaged me to say how this program is helping them. I really appreciate all those messages. It really does help me continue with my work. So thank you so much for that. So let's look back at when we were children. Just think back. Did you get your needs met? Did you get the cuddles that you needed in the way that you needed? Sometimes, sometimes people think, oh, trauma, it has to be something really massive. Maybe it was really massive for you, but sometimes trauma is not just not being held, not being cuddled the way you needed to be cuddled, having to go through something and not having your needs met emotionally, not being touched. You see, from nature, we can learn so much about how to heal. Honestly, we can learn so much on how to be through nature. Trauma is caused where there's an emotional wound, basically. If there's an emotional neglect, if people weren't there for you emotionally, they just left you and you were alone with your emotions, not knowing how to heal. If no one really held you, no one really touched you. Animals, what they do, infants, mammals, what they do is they actually touch their young, they groom their young, they take care of their young, and actually they have studied, even rats, that if they groom their young, if they lick their young from a young age, their brain develops better. There's better brain development. So love is so important. When we start getting down to love and we get love from a young age, we think our needs matter. When we don't get that love that we needed, we sometimes believe that our needs don't matter. And I'm going to look a little bit into why do we believe that our needs don't matter in a bit. But if we think that our needs don't matter, what we're saying is it's okay for me to not develop properly. My needs don't matter. It's okay. I will do without. It's okay for me not to develop properly. You're actually allowing yourself, a part of yourself, to die, basically. Why animals need it? They want to be groomed properly so that their brains can be good. You need that. You're an animal as well. Mature infants, that are used to being incubators, and we used to not touch them. Then they found out by just stroking their backs for 10 minutes a day promoted healthy brain development. Being touched, love, connection is so important. And a great, anthropologist, Ashley Montague, said that touch is very important. If you're not being held, you're not being touched, what is happening is we're being deprived. When we have been in toxic relationships, there's absolutely no denying this. You could be doing so well at work, you could have lots of good friends, but you are in your most important relationship, you're desperate for love. It's a core need. You have to accept that there is a problem with not being in a loving relationship, of not getting love. You need your needs, your basic needs do matter. We have to accept this. And, you know, the problem is, and what Charlie McKinsey that wrote an absolutely gorgeous book called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse. It's really, there's not that many words in it, but it's actually so beautiful. There's lots of beautiful pictures in it. It's very touching. And the horse at some point asks, answers a question like, what is the most courageous thing you can do? And the horse replies, ask for help. And it really is true, right? And there's also the Beatles song called Help. And, there's somebody, and John Lennon, when he was much younger, he even says it in the lyrics, when I was younger, so much younger than today, I didn't need anybody's help in any way. But those days are gone. I'm much less self-assured. What he's actually saying is, when he was younger, he believed he didn't need anyone's help. He was like, I don't need anyone. And he was traumatized growing up. He was left by his father when he was born, and his mother as well. He was abandoned. So when you have abandonment trauma, it's quite common to think, I don't need someone's help. I can do it on my own. I don't need anyone. I don't need nobody. I'm going to do it by myself. If you're someone that is trying to do it on your own and you think you don't need anyone, you actually might have trauma, abandonment trauma from a young age, and you've got this hard wall around you almost saying, I don't need anyone. I'm going to do it by myself. Or it could be after the toxic relationship, because you've been abandoned or you've got abandonment trauma, the pain, it's so painful and so traumatizing that you don't want to get help anymore. You want to do it by yourself. You don't want to be put in this, shown or be seen to be weak in any way, because you now think getting help is a weakness. But it's a part of nature. So if you don't think you need someone, even though you're in pain, that means that you've got some trauma. Because when we grow up, when we're born, we need help. We're all born understanding that. And we're attuned to wanting to be seen, wanting to have our emotions received, validated. We have a need to be heard, seen, received, validated. This is normal. If you don't want that for yourself, you have no, you feel a pain, or you don't want to be put in that scenario, that means that you might have, or you have a trauma, because that's just very unusual. And it's one of the essential needs of being a child. And what happens is we make the trauma normal. And, being traumatized is one of the most terrible things that can happen to anyone, especially to a child. Not having your needs met, not being heard, not being held, not being understood, it is so wounding for a child. And that is what the word trauma means. It's like, you don't have to have terrible things happen. And sometimes people find it really difficult to understand. They think, oh, I need to be in a traumatic scenario. I need to be in war or see someone die for a horrific event to happen. Trauma can happen where you haven't had your emotional needs met. And this is what you have been through, something horrific with a narcissist, where what they've done is they've gradually turned the heat up so you don't even notice what's happening. So you keep going back to that person because you're so hungry for love, you're desperate. You might have this amazing persona in the world where people look up to you in the community. You've got this amazing thing going on. You're an amazing person. But being in a toxic relationship makes it hard to continue in life because you are not having your basic fundamental needs met of connection, of love. And the most important thing you can do is love yourself, to accept yourself, to validate and hear yourself and be honest to yourself. And then you can do techniques such as stonewalling with the narcissist, and you can heal your, you then all those things of don't explain, don't convince, you can do all of that. You don't have to explain yourself, because what it is that you're not going back over and over to that person to try and get that love, to get that connection, to get that understanding, because you're getting it elsewhere. You have to heal your emotional wounds, because when we were abandoned, we decide never to ask for help again for our pain. And the truth is, you're abandoning yourself from ever receiving what you really need. Hence, you'll keep going back to the narcissist because you know they will never give you what you need. And you're not allowing yourself to get what you need from someone that can support you. Maybe groups, maybe communities, maybe new friends, opening up, releasing those emotions. And, I understand horrific events can be very traumatic. But if you're a sensitive person or a sensitive child, you can get hurt just when your parents are too stressed and they're unavailable for you to see who you are for who you are. You see, if we lose ourselves, when we stop listening to our gut instincts, that's what happens in toxic relationships, right? We will do anything to actually try and get love from someone else. And then we get hurt because the people that we're going to are not seeing us for who we are. That's the main pain here, right? The main pain of trauma is not being seen for who we are. And I'm so sorry, but if you have been in a toxic relationship, that is your main pain. You want to be heard, you want to be seen, you want to be understood. And unfortunately, nobody around you is seeing you, hearing you, and understanding you unless you're going to someone that really understands what narcissism does. The narcissist has not done that. And you have a basic need. And that's what we've got to get in touch with, how that feels. You see, you might get angry, hurt, upset. You need to get your emotional needs met somewhere else. That's another way of outsmarting the narcissist. Get your emotional needs met somewhere else. Join a group. Get support. Ask for help. Get support. Go to the resources section. Get support. And if you're looking for, more support in terms of group support and getting to know other people that are in similar situations like yourself, and maybe you need to do something like the Heal to Thrive program, to get that connection. There's another great song by the Beatles, which is All You Need Is Love. Another very insightful song that actually came to them when they were half asleep, by the way. So that shows that, it was intuitively, it came to them. You have to accept, you have to allow yourself to receive love from someone who is capable of giving you the real deal love. And that starts by you feeling worthy of love. Courage comes by asking for help, getting help where you can really get it, so that you can get to your authentic self, so you can start being your authentic self. When you are your authentic self, you will always outsmart the narcissist because you won't be triggered. And that's the biggest problem that we have, is that unfortunately the narcissist knows how to trigger us, so we have to release the triggers. We have to release the triggers means that we have to release the emotional wounds so that the narcissist isn't controlling us through using our emotional wounds. You see, if someone can trigger you, If someone can touch your emotional wounds, they can take you out of character. They can control you. It's, you see, healing your emotional wounds is like cutting through chains so you can run free and be yourself. That is what releasing the trauma does for you. So to explain how you've got into this situation is basically there's an accumulation of emotions, and this has been well studied. Let's look at anger, right? There's this thing called healthy anger, yeah, and it's well documented that when there's a repression of healthy anger, it actually disturbs the immune system. Why should this be the case? Let's look at that. Healthy anger is someone's, basically, say if I came and I'm talking to you right now and you're watching me on a video, and or you're hearing me on a podcast, you know, I'm not in your space. Yeah, it feels like we're maybe having a coffee together or we're together, you know, we're spending this time together, but I'm not in your space. You know, I'm in a space where you feel comfortable with me. And what happens if I was to come right in front of your face right now and like we're touching nose to nose and I'm talking to you and I'm saying all of this and you're like, whoa, what are you doing? This is really weird. I want to move out of the way. You're going to try and take a step back. But say if there's nowhere for you to go, the normal response would be for you to turn around and go, can you get out of my space? And that is okay. That's healthy anger, because anger in that moment is you saying to me, you're crossing your boundaries here. You need to leave, Amen. And that's normal and natural. And when it's done, I'm going to step back and it's done, you know, and then I'm like, oh, sorry, you know, I'm in your space. When it's finished, we're done. Then it's all good. But that's really different from chronic rage. That's a whole nother thing, you know, what you experience with a narcissist. Because anger is basically a boundary defense. If we look at animals again, nature tells us so much. Animals are basically, you know, they've got their boundaries, they've got their territory, and they're saying, get out of my space, this is mine. That's normal. Now look at the emotional system in general, right? It's got the job of the emotional system. What you're doing is the emotional system is saying, you know, if when there's nurturing, loving, healthy things like connection, touch, if I came to close to you and gave you a hug right now, you know, and said, look, I'm so sorry you've been through what you've been through, and we just have this really loving, nurturing connection, hopefully that's welcome and healthy, and you would accept that. That's emotions, you know, that feels good. It's like that connection, and say, yeah. But if I'm in your space and I'm looking at you angry, you're saying, get out. That's okay too. See, and if we look at the job of the immune system, that's, you know, if we look at that, it's all the immune system is doing is exactly the same. It's saying, what's unhealthy, what's unwelcome, what's toxic, I'm going to release it. But I'm going to let in what's nurturing and healthy, nutrients, vitamins, healthy bacteria. I am going to destroy what is toxic, unhealthy. You know, that is simple. One is on the outside, the emotions is helping me manage what's on the outside, and one is on the inside and it's measured. There's also lots of studies about blood pressure and it being related to forgiveness. Forgiveness is about you letting go of your suppressed pain. It's not about forgiving the other person. Sometimes we get this all wrong. Forgiveness is about letting go of the pain within you. It's for you. It's for you. The emotional pain, the emotional wound. So there's a new science called psychoneuroimmunology. That study is all about unity. That is all about, there is a mind, body, emotion, spirit connection going on the unity. We need to look at this from a holistic perspective. When we're not being ourselves, we're not being allowed to express ourselves. That's what a toxic relationship is. That's why a toxic relationship is toxic, is that we're not allowed to be who we want to be. And we're made to feel guilty about it. And then we're made to suppress those guilt feelings and the shame feelings. That is how they are controlling us. Because we will do anything not to feel that guilt because it's too painful. And we haven't got a way of letting these emotions go. We only know how to suppress the feelings because we're trained to do this with a narcissist. So when people that are repressing healthy anger, what we are doing is we're saying that, we're diminishing our immune activity. What we're demonstrating is that repressing our emotions is we're repressing our immune system. So you are more likely to have your immune system turn against you or fail you. So for instance, it's normal and natural to have cancer cells. Nature makes mistakes. We all make mistakes. We sometimes get into relationships that aren't good for us. That's not a problem. That's really not a problem. Making mistakes is not a problem. The immune system, what it does, it recognizes them as cancer cells. They say, okay, on the surface, they don't have the marker cells like they normally do. It's a foreigner, it's an enemy. And we too, and then the immune system goes out and destroys it. You see, our emotions are like our immune system. It's saying, oh, yeah, the marker's not good, the emotions aren't good here, and we need to get away from this, on the outside. So what we're doing when we're suppressing our emotions and pretending they're not there and ignoring them is we're undermining and suppressing our immune system at the same time. So we're kind of teaching it not to destroy. So what is bad for us, we're going against nature, and we then allow ourselves to be afraid. There's also this British surgeon called David Kissin in the 1960s who also noticed that people with emotional repressed anger or any repressed emotions were more likely to get lung cancer. Yeah. So, we know that lung cancer, if you smoke, you get 100 smokers, but only 10 to 15 get lung cancer. What was the major contributor was, of course, smoking was the emotions that were repressed. So the more we repress, and this is in the 1960s, so emotional repression has huge implications on us. So emotionally, were you emotionally repressing yourself in childhood? And like I said before, we have this need for attachment, closeness, unconditional love, acceptance by adults. It's a human thing. It's not just a human thing. It's actually something we need for survival. It's an animal thing. It's called attachment. It's called this closeness, and needing to be taken care of and taking care of another. Is wired in our brain. It's actually wired in our attachment circuits. Our brain is dedicated to being attached and to being in relationships. That's why the trauma bond and the brain is so big. We really need to look at the trauma bond within the brain, because the brain is so important. Our brain is wired for attachment. It's so important in our lives, especially when we're young children. So we need this. And I've already talked about it. We also need authenticity. So if we can be ourselves, connected to our bodies and our gut instinct, our gut feelings, because we need to be able to access our bad feelings so that we can survive. I mean, that's how we survived in nature, in the jungle. 15,000 years ago. We need to be authentic. It's very important to stay connected to ourselves so we know we're safe and we know when we're not. You know what you want and you know what you don't want. You know when to say no when you don't want something. You know when to say yes when you do want something. That is authenticity. It's about being allowed to be yourself. That's when we're in a narcissistic or toxic relationship, we cannot be ourselves every day. We've been trained to not be ourselves. It goes against us, it hurts us. And we have to be a certain person. We have to fit into certain expectations of who we have to be. We have to be someone else for everybody else. We can't figure out, who am I really? How many people feel like they've lost themselves? I don't even know who I am. I get this all the time. So on the surface, the challenge might be we don't know who we are. We don't know what is expected of us. We have this need. We need to be connected and we need to be authentic. Really, truly, they don't need to be in conflict. And when we're in conflict for that, we're not in a relationship. You can be in a relationship and you can be yourself. That's what it means to be accepted, connected. That's what it really means to live our ideal life. So what happens when you're not yourself? When you're not accepted, you get punished. That's what a narcissist does. They punish us. And maybe you've been trained to do that from a young age. You're not allowed to express who you are. You get punished in different ways. You're punished for your emotions. You cannot be yourself. The message is basically you're not accepted to me when you're angry, when you're upset, when you're telling me I'm wrong. You must be this, you must be that, you must be sad, you must be happy, you must be this. I must control your emotions. No. It's like, if that is happening to you, you're faced with a choice. Well, I'll be honest, you haven't got a choice at all. To stay with a narcissist, and the only way you can find is acceptance by repressing your emotions, and you're not sure whether you can be sad, angry, fearful. You're not sure if you can express your sadness, your anger, your emotions, because you're threatening the relationship. Well, where is the choice? You're having to choose an attachment, and therefore you're having to choose to deeply, detach from yourself. That is the essence of trauma. The disconnection from yourself, the disconnection from, and this isn't my words. These are the words of trauma theorists. They're saying the worst aspects of trauma is disconnection from yourself. So what do we do? For the sake of maintaining, making a relationship and maintaining attachments, what do we do for the rest of our lives? We're afraid of being ourselves. Then we're called people pleasers or empaths, but all it is the byproduct of generational trauma. We exhibit these self-destructive behaviors then because we're trying to deal with this trauma. We might go for addictions or be addicted to social media or other things. What do? We have to understand how to manage our emotions and become aware of ourselves. Learn how to heal the wounds. Get support. Get connected with people who understand. One trauma response that's a common response and the kind that you live with is feeling like you're inherently broken. You're not broken. What you need to do is recover. And it's such an interesting word, recovery. What does it mean to reclaim who you are? You're finding it. Recover. You're finding yourself again. And that's the definition, right? You never went away. You're still there. You're not broken. And if you look at some of the beautiful, things that can happen from, through pain, is that you find the beauty within. You have never gone away. Nobody's damaged. Nobody's broken. All it is some old programming. Perhaps a narcissist has programmed you, but you can let it go. nothing in life is wasted if you notice what's really going on and then use it properly so that you become aware of your trauma. So you become aware of you. And that is becoming aware of your power, not to lose it, but to gain it. A trauma response, trauma isn't about becoming irresponsible, that having excuses, I had trauma like the narcissist does, or this happened to me, always being the victim. No, it's about through being aware, learning how to overcome it, going back into yourself, healing a wound so you come back to yourself. This is for you. This is about you releasing your emotional wounds so you can reclaim your power. And if you want to do that, I have an incredible program that is super. I have an early bird offer on it, so it's actually really cheap at the moment. Look at the resources section and you can access it there. But the truth is, it's about you getting back to you and healing the emotional wounds through love. So if you take one thing from me, keep being loving, understanding, and compassionate towards yourself. Giving yourself a hard time, deepening those emotional wounds. And if you've already got a wound there and you got triggered, there's no point in getting a knife, or we'll pretend this is a knife, and start beating your trauma wound with it more. No, we want to heal. We want to send love, healing, understanding, compassion to that wound so that you heal it. So you let go of that trauma wound. So no one can come along and poke that like a narcissist and control you doing that. So more love, more understanding, more compassion towards yourself. Till next time. See you then.